Libra Mars, right? Just got just got into Libra with Mars, so you know, let's try to paint the whole picture gradually, until the whole picture comes together. Some other helpful details that I think I can share is if we remember that any planet that goes through Virgo, okay, and I already said some of these points, but I think it's helpful to, even if I repeat it following another point, is that any planet that goes into Virgo, it's preparing for court. It's getting ready for court. That's where it has to dot the I's and cross the T's. It has to get all the details ready for judgment. For the three courts of Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. And again, you can scroll down and find that video of the three courts. I mentioned around 2 months ago that it would be very important to listen to those videos so that I wouldn't have to give a whole entire discourse every time I mention about courts. Okay, I'm going to continue to use that language. Now, Virgo is where we have to practice refinement to clean up the details, maximize efficiency, make space, polish, make ourselves presentable, and to remove the blemishes, you understand, to practice wellness upon the self so that we are reflecting a sense of justice with the self, that we are being just to ourselves. And we do not have the capacity to be just to others until or unless we are in status of being just to ourselves. Just to ourselves is that we are not in positions or circumstances of self-undoing, self-harm, disrespect or dishonor of the self, oppression to the self in any type of way. From our diet, our lifestyle, our relationships, circumstances, the demands that are upon us of responsibilities and duties, and all of our affairs that requires our responsive attitude, requiring us to be present with what demands our responsibility. Understand? So Mars has made its way out of Virgo and is now ready for court. He's dressed for court. And when he goes into Libra, he's under the jurisdiction of Maat. Okay? And you can go to my website to get a detailed understanding of Maat for the sake of me not having to make a whole entire hour discourse about that. I would like you to find the time, if you could, to really read about it if you don't already know or understand about Ma'at, okay? You have to know Ma'at to really understand in depth what Libra is all about. And why I'm referring to Ma'at is because Ma'at, as a principle of theology, as a principle of gnosis, is one of the most original expressions of Libra. Because we have to remember that the Greek philosophers who are foundational for modern day gnosis and theology and philosophy, they were students of Kemet. They were students of Egyptians. That has to be understood. They were students of King Imhotep and many other scholars, kings, healers, medicine workers, engineers, scientists, philosophers, so on and so forth, of ancient Kemet. Kemet was first. Egypt was first. It was among the first to crystallize and to put in order gnosis. That's first of all. Astrology precedes all of it. Astrology is the very beginning of gnosis. It's the very beginning of wisdom as comprehensive on earth. However, it was ancient Kemet that standardized this knowledge and these teachings. So we're really doing ourselves justice when we go back to the foundational theologies to really discover and get deeper insight into what these energies mean. All right? Now, ancient Kemetic gnosis has an equivalency with all of the disciplines of animism, such as Ifa Yoruba tradition, Voodoo, Santeria, all of these, okay? Catholicism, all of them are practices of animism, okay? The essence of that can be understood at the foundational ancient Kemetic sciences and theologies, okay? So this is why I'm referring us to that, especially yous out there who have strong Libra placements or stelliums, such as the Libra ascendants, okay? Libra at key points of strength, like the philosophy of Libra at the ninth house, all right? The core of Libra at the fourth house, so on and so forth, okay? We want to understand what's behind that. So let's refer to Maat. So when a planet goes to Maat, to her territory, to her jurisdiction, they got to go to court. It's time to be judged according to those laws, the laws of harmonization, justice, viscosity, fair dealing, equality. I have not harmed anyone. I have not wronged anyone. I have not abused my neighbor. I have not laid with, my neighbor's wife. I have not stolen. I have not, fabricated. I have not exaggerated, so on and so forth. So the 42 laws of Ma'at, those mantras, those sayings, those expressions are the calibrations of justice. And in particular for what? Mars, our actions, how we have been asserting ourselves from our personality, from our identity, from our beliefs, from our natural impulses. Mars rules over Scorpio and Aries. So therefore you want to look into Scorpio and Aries for insight into what actions might we be judged for. We also want to look at the territories that Mars has passed over, especially the Cancer Mars retrograde. Judgment is now coming down for that. This is not a scare. All right? Let me take the responsibility to reassure everyone. This is not something that we need to be scared about. It's something that we need to be open-minded of, accepting of the fact that this is part of cycles. It's part of cycles, and we have to accept that this is inevitable part of life cycles. Okay, so when we're aware that every year our actions, well, for some planets is every other year, or 2 years, or 5 years, or 12 years. It just depends on the pace of the planet that goes through Libra. Every time a planet passes through Libra, especially the sun, we're going to get judged there. And we're going to get judged at Scorpion, we're going to get judged at Sagittarius, and at Capricorn, the party bus, comes to pick you up and take you to Rocky's Island, all right, for certain things, all right? It also can go the opposite way, where ruling gets judged for you in your favor. So this is why before our impulses or planets get to this point, we want to be aware that we should be mindful of what we do, and we should be mindful of how we're doing. Be mindful of what we say and how we say it too. May Allah guide me to be among those who practice what they preach. Ameen. And so, all year long, we want to think about this, not just when it comes to court. You know, this is practicing civics in a spiritual sense, knowing that we are subjects to the laws of life. We are subjects to the spiritual laws and forces of this earth that preside over life. None of us are exempt from the law, and ignorance of the law makes no difference. It's the same way that it is in the flesh, so it is in spirit. Ignorance of a law is no justification, and it's no excuse. Above all things, we are intelligent. It's really the only thing, our consciousness is really the only thing that makes us so-called human. It's the only thing that really sets us apart from mammal, from beast. It's our conscience and our conscious, okay? Conscience being a noun, conscious being an adjective, okay? Mercury and the moon. You could also go to my website to look at that read, okay? I wrote some details on that so we can have insight in the difference between the moon and Mercury as it relates to the mind. This is what makes us different than a centaur. Understand? And it's why we have to go through so much to expand and exercise these faculties of ourselves so that we can become more and more civilized. Okay? And so, our civilization is founded and rooted in matriarchal law. The more rooted and founded we are in matriarchal law, the less likely it is that we stray away from the balance in the scales of justice. All right? So wherever we are disturbing the scales of justice or unequal in the scales of justice with ourselves against the 42 mantras, the 42 laws of Maat, we have to take that portion of ourselves and we have to bathe it in the waters of Cancer. We have to nurture it in the waters of Cancer in order for it to be submerged in matriarchal awareness, matriarchal connection. That is our judgment of right, wrong, good, or bad, going back to the matriarchal law. All right? I give an example. It's something that you may struggle with all your life, you know, and you're trying to improve on it, improve upon it the best way you can, you know, as the sun goes around in transit. If I give an example, right? Like, I have the South Node Sagittarius, North Node Gemini, okay? I have the Sun and Mars at Gemini as well at the 11th house, which is why I'm talking to all of y'all. You know what I'm saying? It's the fact that I have the North Node, Gemini, and Sun and Mars at the 11th house. That's the reason why I'm here talking to everybody now, all right? It's my destiny. This is what I'm supposed to do. And you all can clearly hear the Mars that's behind my Sun. However, with the South Node being at Sagittarius, I have to learn how to tame the centaur in myself. Alright? Half animal, half man. I have to learn how to tame that fire of Sagittarius. Sagittarius is ignorant. It is wild. It is untamed. It is uncivilized. And I know that you all can hear that part of me, you know, inside of myself. It's like the hairy chest barbarian, all right, that drags his knuckles on the ground. I talk that way a lot of times, and it's a real challenge for me to learn how to evolve in such a way where I'm articulating and expressing myself without damaging or consuming fire. You see what I'm saying? So I'm going to continue to have to place that portion of myself on the scales of justice and accept the repercussions and consequences of it as I learn to evolve and mold myself into a more perfected version of myself. Okay? Because we have to develop ourselves to fit the mold of our destiny. We don't just come as is. It's like you go, you know, when you buy a bicycle for your kid, sometimes you're lucky enough to get the bike as is. But there's times where you have to, you know, assembly is required. In this earth, assembly is required for the things that we're expected to do, for what we're called to do. Assembly is required. You know what I mean? So this is not a bad thing that we're in the courts with Mars. It's a good thing because now if we open our mind and say, listen, I just want to do justice. I want to be correct with myself and others. I want to harmonize and have justice between myself and others. I want there to be fairness and equality between me and others. I don't want to oppress anyone and I don't want to wrong anyone. I do not want to be unjust to myself or unjust to others. It is my will, it is my intention, and I wish to be aware of where I'm violating those laws so that I can actively assert myself to fix it. You see what I'm saying? So that's really what the intention is behind Mars coming into Libra, is it helps us to find an assertive attitude about harmonizing, managing, and giving maintenance to our relationship crisis or shortcomings. All right? So this is working complementary with the fact that Jupiter and Venus is now concentrating at Three of Cups expression at the second decan of Cancer, which coincides with, again, Pluto and Mars energy. You see? Pluto and Mars, all right? And Mars is at Libra, okay, being judged, because Mars is now, in court, standing pro se, presenting itself. Mars, we're addressing, how you're doing this and how you're doing that. We need you to show justice with this and fairness with that, equality with that, harmonize this and harmonize that. This could be with your finances, with your relationships, business, work, career, anything. It depends on what house you have Libra, okay? What house do you have Libra as an energy or algorithm or spirit that governs that part of your personal expression in life? Okay, that's the area where we're going to prioritize our efforts, our works, our intentions. You know what I mean? We are preoccupied in prioritizing, harmonizing our relationships around us. Now let me progress this along. The point and intention is that we manifest or create. Okay? I'm not just going to use these words manifest like poetry. Oh, manifest. Okay, what does that mean? Manifest. All right? Manifest as in, we're not entitled to anything. Nobody is entitled to anything. All right? We are creators and co-creators in the image and likeness of Allah or God. Olodumare, whatever name you want to use. I don't care. It's the same. All right? And so, being that that's the case, if Three of Cups is to manifest at the second decan of Cancer, it's going to come from our efforts. It's going to come from our conscious awareness and intention to see that outcome, to see that reality. If we don't want that to be the case, and if we do not make effort towards that, it's not going to be. Astrology is not some magic where the planets circumambulate and just happens, without your involvement. You're not getting what you have not earned or worked for or applied yourself actively to see manifest. We have to intentionally manifest the Three of Cups. And that Three of Cups is the fulfillment and harmony of family, community, cooperation, and establishing the order of, I borrow a cup of sugar from you, and you borrow some butter for me, and I borrow some, some flour from so-and-so, okay? You have to set up that infrastructure of community, and you have to harmonize within it by settling scores, having the difficult conversations with the intention to understand each other, to cooperate, negotiate, give fair dealings, do not cheat the scales. You know what I mean? Don't be selfish, because everything is not just about you, it's about everybody involved. We are becoming, in other words, our own welfare. We're becoming our own social service. We are becoming our own support. Ironically, yeah, child support too. We are becoming our own support. The centralized government is gone, and it's going to continue to dissolve further and further away. So the favor is coming to us to put fire under our behind so that we could get up and be assertive and active about self-determination, to create our own infrastructure to show resilience to the circumstance. Because it's not for us to cry and complain and say, oh, the government didn't this, the government didn't that. No, you don't got to worry about what the government did or didn't do, because you know they some crooks anyway. What we are supposed to do is practice the spirit of humanity, practice community, practice togetherness, harmonize, put aside our differences for the greater good. That's what we're supposed to do. And as I was pointing out, the fact that Capricorn, Pholus, all right, all of our attachments to our ambitious intentions, get to the bag, career status. I'm competing with you. Look at this car I got. Look at this house I got. I make more money than you. I got this career title or job title. You dusty, you broke. I'm in a gated community. You still in the hood, dodging bullets. You know what I'm saying? All of this bickering that's causing all of this division, this attitude, this mindset of materialism, Machiavellianism, Ahrimanic energies, okay? All of this is toxic. It's very toxic. And what we're doing is we're depriving ourselves of the experience of love and fulfillment and security that we're supposed to have. We're not supposed to be here indulging in European fashion, stacking money up to the ceiling so we can flex and show off on the next one. We're supposed to realize the value in love. We're supposed to realize the value in family and connectedness. We're supposed to look at the value in each other as irreplaceable life forces that we are at the mercy of. It is true and it is verified that we all are at the mercy of each other. See, the music, the rap videos, and you know what I'm saying? You know, you can relate this to your culture personally. Everybody don't listen, you know what I'm saying, to that whole hip hop world. And that stuff contaminates, you know, the culture that I come from. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that there's things that contaminate the culture where you come from. All right, whatever, you know, but, you know, I want this to be a universal conversation, you know, all family, all included, everybody come in, let's huddle, you know what I mean, let's hold hands as we talk about this. So, there's things that really makes our communities toxic, you know, from entertainment, movies, the media, you understand, and we start looking at each other in all the wrong ways. We look at women and we assess their value on all the wrong things. And women look at men and assess the value on all the wrong things. And we become alienated from each other. And we can't come together to harmonize and practice family. We think that value is in, you know what, sexual a fantasy that you can fulfill. Or we think that value is in what monetary value that you can fulfill. So we're looking at each other as a jump off or an ATM machine. And we can't come up with a new idea or an original idea of what value really means in a man or a woman or the other person. And we miss out on countless opportunities to live a fulfilling life. Because the commercialism, the media is brainwashing and socially engineering us to perceive each other in low frequencies, in ignorance. The true meaning of provision, the true meaning of, clickbait words like submission, love, marriage, dating. Every word has illusions. Dating means sleeping around. Provision means give me money. Relationship means use each other until you can't use each other no more and then leave. It's code words for our degeneracy. And we're being provoked and held against the wall to come clean and to come authentically. We're taking off these masks and these illusions and these lies that we all have been participating in deluding ourselves with, and getting down to the real people. The people who were born from the fourth house Cancer. That is the womb. The womb of the spirit is Pisces. The womb of the body is Cancer. Understand that, okay? So that is the womb of our existence in this earth. Fourth house. We came through the womb of a woman. That's what we all have in common. And because we all came through the womb of a woman, none of us has an excuse to stray away from or to abandon the original constitution of all of us, which is matriarchal understanding, wisdom, sensitivity, conscience. Conscience. C-O-N, science. Conscience. That's the foundation. That is matriarchy. Matriarchy is conscience. Not conscious. Conscience. Conscience. That is matriarchy foundation. That is matriarchal constitution. That is matriarchal law. It's your conscience. To have a conscience. That is the image of a woman. Conscience. That's the signature and description of a woman. The moon in relativity to the earth and sun. And that's what's being restored. The image of the woman, and the image of matriarchy, and the image of divine feminine principle, which is in all of us through and through. The end result is supposed to be that we manifest our own welfare and social service through expansion of Cancer through Jupiter, which equals Aquarius. Now, what goes with this whole point, right, is that Anubis weighs the heart on a scale of Maat, the scales of justice, Libra, against the feather of truth. This is what takes place as Mars passes through Libra. Okay? The connection of our heart to Mars is weighed on a scale against truth. The result or outcome of that goes with Anubis, the lord of the underworld, or Scorpio, Pluto. Okay? This is Scorpio and Pluto. Scorpio is the next court. So from Libra, Mars will go into Scorpio with Anubis. And that is where we will be expected to die to certain qualities and characteristics of the self, circumstances in the life of the self that concerns Libra, relationship matters, in order to resurrect the more appropriate or authentic expression of the self that is consistent or more consistent with truth and justice. A transformation has to occur. An ego death has to occur. We have to burn down to ashes in order to rise again as the phoenix. And this version of ourself then goes to the court of Sagittarius, which is a divine court. And that is where expansion of freedom is possible if we did not resist subjection to the laws of Scorpio, which is, do we have the courage to accept disillusionment for what it is so that we can transform? Or are we still attached to attempting to change the face of nature, to resist judgment, to resist justice? Understand? What we're about to find is that by the time Mars gets into Scorpio, this is when we have to actually submit our behaviors and actions to transformational process if we are to reclaim the freedom to assert ourselves in the way that feels more authentic to ourselves with an empowering outlook, if that's to be the case. So 2 months out, that's when we're asserting ourselves to make deeper founded connections. This is when we're asserting ourselves to endure the transformational experiences that establishes relationships, that grounds it, that ascends our relationship status from the seventh house into the eighth house. This is where we learn to become committed through our new outlooks or sense of justice in relationships. This is when we become committed. And as Mars goes through Sagittarius, we're going to see a new level of freedom, a new range of freedom because of our willingness to do that. This is a season where feminism gets reversed. Not saying that this is all about feminism, but collectively, it really is. And the generations were the products, the outcome of single parent training. We've been subject to the psychology of single women on social media who program the world because they're pretty and they have a cell phone with a camera on it. To think the way they think about how we judge and value a person's worth or not, how we assess a person's importance or value. We think like our mothers now, the feminist mothers. Not saying, this is not saying that all mothers are feminists, but we're not going to sit here and play like we don't know what's going on with the American public and feminism and how it has captured the mind of the majority of our women. We're not going to pretend like we don't know this. We're finding our way out of it finally. It's a harsh truth, but it's a long overdue process that has to happen. And now, bridges that got burned, people who haven't talked in a long time, reconciliation is going to be encouraged or motivated out of the crisis, the circumstance of the public. Everything that gave a false sense of empowerment and independence in some immature characters that set the tone for culture. Lyndon B. Johnson's welfare state, liberal mindset as a consequence or result of being on a college campus for enough years to get brainwashed into that thinking. This led to the separation and division of families, the breakdown of families. You might think, or you might say, this don't have nothing to do with me because, I don't get into that. I don't get involved with feminism, so on and so forth. If you're American, if you're from the West, yes, it does. It did affect you. It affected every last one of us because it was by design. It was designed to be that way. It was designed to weaken and destabilize the family unit. The first family that it destabilized and weakened was black families. And then it destabilized everybody's family in America because it worked so well. Like a well-oiled machine. It turned women against men. It weaponized children through the court system. It incentivized divorce. There's a big wedge between man and woman under this brainwashing that takes place on liberal college campuses. Who thought that we would not have to give account for this? Now it has to be healed and cleaned up because everything that enabled that attitude is now gone. You only were emboldened to that because Lyndon B. Johnson, way back when, said, if you hang a nigga, we'll take care of you. Don't worry about him. If you have to struggle in any way at all, he's a no good man. There should be no struggle at all if you're with a good man. But let's ask ourselves, is that really true? There are some amazing men out here, and there are some people who never had to struggle. That is wonderful, but that's few and far between. Every family faces some struggles, but our females of our society have been taught and trained that if there's any type of struggle or inconsistency whatsoever, throw them out. That is the shadow of Virgo. Which again, why we have Virgo at the South Node. It's dealing with that attitude of you think you're so perfect to where you throw the baby out with the bathwater. If there's any type of imperfection in somebody else, you wash your hands with it. But yet you yourself are imperfect. If there's any kind of inconsistency, but you are inconsistent. If he's not 6 feet tall, 6 figures, and so on and so forth, got a big old thing and a whole bunch of money, he's not a real man. But let's not get started with what you got going on, sister. Let's not start naming all that. We'll be here for a while talking about that. Females of America think they are so perfect. They are so high above morally. They are so high above in their status. They're so high above in their intelligence. They're so high above in every way than their male counterpart, especially the 9-to-5 blue collar man. They think they're better. There is nobody breathing air who can refute this. We all are living in this day witnessing it. We see it, we hear it. That is South Node Virgo. It's when you fail to take action. It's when there are inactions in your life because perfection is not there. Inaction. You fail to move on something, identify with something, cooperate with something because it's not perfect enough for you. The description that females give of what their ideal man is, he doesn't fucking exist. He does not exist. There's no such thing as the man that American women describe as the ideal man for themselves. They themselves don't qualify for the man that they say is the only one who qualifies for them. They're delusional. Ask them to take back all the products back to the beauty stores and the Chinaman store and tell them to do the best they can with keeping themselves up. They'll stand in front of the public with their heads down low, ashamed of how they look, because they do not like any feature that they have on their body. They don't like their nose, their eyes, their lips, their ears, their skin, their hair. They don't like nothing about themselves. So what we're seeing here is an obvious projection of their own rejection of themselves. South Node Virgo. All of this is being addressed. How many fathers, how many men suffered false accusations, false narratives, being characterized in ways that are not true to his behavior, character, intentions, or nature. But there's nothing he could do about it because the regime of feminism is that powerful. He has to wait until the children grow up and be old enough to see for themselves what the truth is behind what their mother claims. Now what's being enforced or what's being promoted by the powers of this universe is that women have to participate and cooperate in what they expect of their ideals of relationships based on realistic outlooks. Realistic. Because these social constructs that were enabling of these attitudes and diseases of this feminist regime, they are gone by the stroke of Donald Trump's pen. This is destined. So there's no choice but to get it right, to search yourself and come clean, to stop participating in that sickness, that madness. I know that people don't like me talking about it. I don't like talking about it either. But I was born with a covenant for women, an anointing for women that started out with trial with women. 12th house Venus, Cancer. So I'm sent to earth to talk about this. It's my destiny to talk about this, and nobody will ever stop it. The problem is that it's not enough women who have courage, who have the courage and the fortitude, the resilience to address it themselves, to be honest enough themselves about the matter and get active. Instead, it ends up coming back to men who have to correct women's portion that they owe to the situation. And because they won't correct it, the portion that they owe to the situation, men end up having to address it. And when men have to address it, it goes in ways that they might not like. They might not like the tone, or they might not like the delivery. But here's what I have to say about that. It's just like a household where you have children behaving in certain ways that are not good. And the mother is trying to discipline the children or manage the children. And the mother says to the children, don't do that. Don't jump on the table. Clean up your room. You're not going to get dessert first. And they're throwing tantrums and throwing fits and behaving in ways that they're not supposed to. But the mother's way of disciplining the children may not work to manage their behavior. And so now the father has to step in. And when the father has to step in, It's not nice. So the mother will often use the warning, you better stop before I tell your dad. Why is that? Because the child knows that I'd rather deal with my mother's discipline than my father's discipline. I'm not saying that this is a universal concept, but what I'm saying is I'm trying to relate you all to why my tone and my delivery. I'm clarifying why my tone and delivery is not the same as a woman. Because the matter has not been managed by women. It has not been controlled by women. It has not been addressed by women. So if you let it get out of control to where men have to get involved to address the issue, you're not going to like the way that we deal with it. Nobody liked the way Kevin Samuels dealt with it. Kevin Samuels wasn't disrespectful. He wasn't abusive. He was simply a man addressing the issues that women refuse themselves to address. Sherazad Ali came in the 80s and did the exact same thing that Kevin Samuels did. And what did women do? They treated her even worse than they did Kevin Samuels. They celebrated when Kevin Samuels died. They were glad he finally died. So whenever somebody addresses these issues about feminism, and especially black women, there's a sensitivity about it where there's this deep offense that somebody has the audacity to talk about it and address it. What the problem is that it's not enough of you, women, being brave enough to get off your behind and address it, get open about it and public about it, and nip it in the bud. You yourselves do not defend your own womanhood. You do not protect your own identity and image that other women tear down and destroy, and you have to suffer the byproduct consequence of secondary nature. And you're offended when a man has to come and do it in his own style, in his own way, in his own nature. I'm not a woman. I don't have a pussy. I ain't got a pussy. I got testosterone. I'm a blue collar worker. I'm a career craftsman. My hands are callous and hard. You think I'm going to get up here and choose the sweetest words that I could find to talk to motherfuckers? No, I'm not. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be myself. And just because me being myself is different than you being yourself, it doesn't mean that I'm any short of the love that you would be if you finally got off your behind and did it yourself, so I don't gotta fucking do it. Let me see you produce more works than me for women. Then you're in position to critique me about how the fuck I'm delivering. But until then, if you can't control the situation, just like if the state cannot represent the Constitution or fails to do so, the federal has to step in. But when the federal steps in, it's ugly, it's restricted, it's harsh. Why? Because it's the long arm of the law. It's Saturn stepping in. It's rigid. It has to be. It's supposed to be. That's divine masculine patriarchy that steps in as a hard shell to preserve and defend and protect the soft matriarchal core. So when you hear this rigid nature, oh, I don't like your cursing. I don't like you doing this, and I don't like you doing that. And, oh, I can't take that. Oh, he's mean and he's misogynistic. Oh, he didn't have to say it like that. Yes, that's the hard shell of the crab. That's patriarchy. And patriarchy is here to defend matriarchy, because I do not see you females often enough lifting your voices and finding the courage to address the matter yourself, when you are the ones who are first affected by it, and then the children, and then men. But there's so much to say, clenching pearls, about somebody have something to say about it. But who the fuck gonna say something about it if I don't? If we men don't? Who else is gonna do it? It will go undone. It will go unspoken. And that can't keep happening.